Okay, welcome to our AMA with Jackie Bolen.
Mhm.
Jackie, thank you so much for joining us today. It's really exciting to have you joining us from all the way over in Vancouver, and on your new career path.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to like talk about Korea, and I feel like I annoy people in my life here all the time because I start my stories with well in Korea, so it's like nice to actually talk to someone in Korea about Korea.
Yeah. Now, if y'all haven't actually met Jackie, she was very active in Kotisol for a long time. How long were you actually in Korea?
I was in Korea for 10 and a half years, and I was involved in Kotisol for about half of that, so around 5 years or something like that. Yeah.
That's very cool. And you went back to Canada just a few years ago, right?
Yeah, I moved back to Canada. I guess it's been like 4.5 years now.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, quite a while.
I
Yeah,
thought it was.
it feels like a short amount of time, but
Oh,
it's actually been a while. Yeah.
oh, that's funny. Can you tell us a little bit about how you ended up in Korea in the first place? Like, how did you wind up going into ELT and wind up in Korea specifically?
Sure. So I studied psychology for my undergrad degree, and I did this internship with like victims of domestic violence, which was pretty intense. And I just was like, oh, this is not for me. All like kind of like these low paying, high stress jobs in that field. And I went to all these meetings and talked to like people who graduated in the program from before, like previous years that I'd taken classes with. And they were all like, whoa, this is like tough going. And yeah, so I just was like, okay, like I'm gonna go do something else. And so I looked into like teaching English, and actually Japan was my first choice, but back then it was quite difficult to get a job in Japan. So the big companies, like I think like Aeon and like similar kind of ones, would require people to fly to like interview cities, like
Wow.
which were Toronto or Edmonton or Toronto or Vancouver. But I lived in Edmonton, and you would have to pay for your own whatever like flights and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's complicated. So we're at the time, Korea had very few visa regulations, and it was like a 5 minute phone call with a hagwon, and you could just like get a job, and they would send you a plane ticket. I mean, it's much more difficult now. It's like times have certainly changed, but yeah, back then it was just easy. And yeah, so I came to Korea and worked for a couple of years at hagwons, and yeah, I really liked it. So I stayed, and well, actually, I ended up going back to Canada, and I went back to grad school. And the
Wow.
whole time I was in Canada, I just was like, Korea was like such a good experience. So I ended up going back and got jobs at two different universities. And yeah, I ended up staying for such a long time, I think, because the university jobs were so good. Like, obviously, so much vacation and really good pay. And I really, really like teaching adults a lot more than I like teaching kids, certainly. And yeah, I took some interesting classes. And yeah, overall, it was just a really good
And
experience.
did you teach in Busan the whole time? You were down in Busan,
No,
right?
yeah, I finished my years in Busan, so I was there for about half the time,
Okay.
and the other half of the time I was in Cheonan, so which is just south
Oh,
of Seoul on the KTX line or whatever. So yeah,
right,
out in the
okay.
countryside, in the full-on countryside with the rice paddies, and
You should see Cheonan today. It is super developed. I mean,
it
it's
was
a proper
developing
suburb.
as I was leaving. Yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
it's ultra modern. But yeah, I think that university, Hoso University, they have a Cheonan campus and then a Asan campus, which is the countryside, and that's where I lived. And yeah, it was fun. We had like a fire pit and a barbecue pit, and like there was a lake behind our house. We had a
Oh,
garden
wow.
with vegetables, and like I don't know, it was just kind of this cool, interesting experience. And I used to ride my bike around the countryside, and I bought a scooter, and I used to take
Oh,
like
wow.
camping trips, and like
How,
yeah, and
how long were you there?
for like 5 years.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah,
what prompted you to change to Busan? That sounds amazing.
it was amazing, but it was like I had two really really good friends that I used to hang out with all the time. One of them is Jinx, who probably a lot of
Mm.
co-tutelers know, Stephen Peter Jinx, and he went to Malaysia. And then my other good friend, he went to Vietnam. And then I felt like I'm alone in the countryside at this like place. And yeah, so I stuck it out for one more semester, and then my contract ended. And um, yeah, I just felt like I had to get out of there. Like it was time for a change. It was only fun because my good friends were there, and I mean, we used to play like board games all the time or play tennis. Like every night I would hang out with those guys and do stuff. And then, yeah, I was pretty lonely for a few months. So yeah, I just wanted like a new start and like to be by the ocean and yeah. So.
Okay. And then how was your life in Busan?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, it was so amazing. I used to go surfing all the time and like camping on the beach and
oh wow.
Yeah, I met like a really cool group of friends and yeah, I mean, yeah, it was a great time. And I bought a car, so that was like made it more interesting. I could take road trips around in the islands and like
oh, that's really cool.
I also had a really good experience in Busan. So
what were some of your favorite places to visit on road trips or like when you were riding your bicycle around?
Well, my friend Kathleen, like some of you guys know Kathleen Kelly.
Sure.
Yeah, she's my good friend in Busan. So we used to go on bike rides all the time. So we actually did a bike ride up the Nakdong River. So starting in Busan, and then, or no, we actually took a bus to Andong, which is like the dam, and then you can like ride down the river all the way to Busan. So that was like maybe a 4-day trip or something, like 200 or 300 kilometers. So we did that, and then yeah, we also did a road trip like just up the coast, like up the east coast of Korea, and I think we made it to like Pohang or something. We didn't make it that far actually because I was the only one that had a license, and I just was like, I'm tired of driving. Like, let's stop. So that one summer vacation, and I also used to take trips like to the west of Busan to like Bosong, the tea fields, and some of the kind of like just quiet places around there. Or Goje Island. I used to go to Goje all the time. Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. And what prompted you to return to Vancouver?
I just had this kind of like idea in my head that I just didn't want to stay in Korea longer than 10 years. So I signed a contract at like year 8.5, and it was a 2-year contract. And then I was like, okay, well, that's 10 years or 10.5 years. So so that for sure. But I was also pretty burnt out on teaching. And I mean, it was like, I didn't hate it, but I wasn't excited about it anymore. And yeah, I mean, that's not a great place to be, obviously, when you're like in the classroom every day and not feeling happy about being there. So yeah, so I just decided that it was time for a change. And it's hard to be in Korea and not be a teacher. I mean, I didn't really like, my Korean language skills were mediocre. So it was like, those other jobs or whatever just weren't open to me as a possibility. So yeah, I just decided to go back to Canada and start life there, I guess. Yeah.
And how has it been, the transition back to Canada? I know you've been there a while now, but how was the transition? How's it going now? What are you up to in Vancouver?
Well, it was pretty chaotic at the beginning. I mean, it was like kind of my original plan was kind of a bust, and then I did another plan, and like, I don't know, it was just a lot going on. But for work, I was dating this person, and their aunt was like working in the movie industry pretty high up. So she was just like, well, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, not that much. She's like, oh, you should come be like a movie extra. So I was like, okay. And I did that. Yeah, it was kind of cool. And then she was like, well, what are you doing next week? Come be a production assistant. And I was like, okay. And then I did that. And then I got a job, like a steady job, working on this show called The Romeo Section for CBC, which is, it's like canceled or whatever. But then through that, I ended up doing like first aid and kind of like catering. It's combined. And then ended up getting a first aid certificate, and then did like independent shows and like as first aid, whatever. And so I did that for almost 3 years, and kind of not full-time, but like I would work, the days are super long, like 12 or 14 or 15 hour days for like say 4 months at a time. And then I would take time off and work on my websites and my books and stuff. So, but the hours were like super grueling, and it was hard to have any sort of like life outside of that. So my first day ticket expired like about a year ago, and I stopped doing it. I just didn't get it renewed. And then yeah, I've been doing like full time on my websites and books and stuff these days, which is kind of always what I wanted to do. But it was like, I don't know, the movie industry was like really good money. So it was actually quite good, because it was like, moving to Canada, I didn't want to like burn through all my pension and all my like career savings. So I just did that, and it was like, yeah, it was a good financial decision for sure. I bought a condo, and like, it all kind of just worked out really well. So yeah, things are like good now for sure. But it was tough for a couple of years, I think. Yeah.
Have you gone back into dabbling in the movie industry at all? Like, are you ever an extra or anything like
No.
that?
No, I probably never will. I mean, it was like a little bit exciting, I guess, like meeting some famous people, and it's kind of like a buzz. Like you get onto the set, it's like you're doing this kind of cool thing together or creating this project or whatever. So it was like, it was interesting at first, but I think, yeah, it's like most people that work in the industry after a few years are usually divorced and like, an alcoholic or like addicted to drugs. I don't know. It's just like, it's such a hard life. It's such a hard life to do it. And it's like, I just kind of saw my life like down the road and knew that it was time to stop. And even if I didn't make as much money doing my own thing, it was like quality of life for sure was important to me. So yeah, so I decided to just quit cold turkey, I guess. It's like tempting. The money is like, it's really hard to say no sometimes, but yeah, I decided to, so.
And how did you end up doing first aid plus catering? Like those don't seem very
It's
complementary.
weird. It's weird. It's like I have no idea. Like in Canada, it's a combined job. Like it's called craft services. So it's not exactly like catering, but it's like you do like coffee and like sandwiches and like snacks and stuff. And I think like it's actually quite a difficult job. But I mean, like 20 years ago, it was this easiest job. You would literally just make a pot of coffee and then like he doesn't have enough to do or she doesn't have enough to do. So let's make them the first aid person too or whatever.
Oh,
but now it's evolved into this thing where you have to like do these elaborate like platters of like whatever. And like everybody wants their special thing. And like you have to make sandwiches and then you do like another meal. And it's like this big thing now actually. So it's like, anyway, like in the US, it's split into two jobs. Mm-hmm. But in Canada, for some reason, it's just been combined into like one job, where in reality, it probably shouldn't be, but it's just like, is what it is. So, I mean, I don't know why. It's weird, but.
Did you prepare the food yourself? Sorry, I'm just fascinated with this idea. Did you actually prepare the food, or were you just like in charge of arranging it from various restaurants?
Well, no, I would generally prepare it. Like on a movie set in Canada, there would be like a catering truck. So they would provide breakfast for everybody, like before call time. Call time, say, would be like at 9 a.m. or something. So from like 7:30 to about 9, you could come get breakfast for free before work. And then 6 hours later, you would break for like what's called lunch. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is. It could be the middle of the night, but it's still called lunch. So they would prepare that. But then my job, I would have to like make sandwiches. So 3 hours after call time. So between breakfast and lunch, there's like sandwiches. So some people would order them, but I would generally make them myself.
Oh, wow.
And then you have lunch. And then there's like after lunch, 3 hours after lunch is done, you prepare like hot snack, it's called. So you make like some sort of like meal for people basically late at night. And yeah, and then like the whole day there's like coffee and like, I don't know, platters of like fruits and like vegetables and whatever, like anything, so many things. So because people just have so much free time, you know, like people do their jobs, like the hair and makeup people, they like in the morning they're busy, but then they have hours of like nothing. And then same with the transport people, like that's kind of like the standard thing. So everybody's just like hangs out at the snack table and like all day, kind of like there's nothing else to do. So I mean, yeah, so I would like make all the food myself usually. But
did you have to audition for that? Like, did you bring in a sampling of your cooking, your sandwich?
I got the job because it's kind of how most people get their jobs in the movie industry is like, I was working as a production assistant on a show, and then the guy who was doing it, craft services, his assistant was going back to school, and he was just like, hey, do you want to be my assistant? And then I was like, yeah, sure, because the pay was better and like hours were better. So I started doing it with him, and he kind of taught me everything. And then yeah, I went and got my first aid certificate and got certified to do it, and then got into the unions and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it all just kind of like worked out. But that's kind of how everybody gets into the better jobs in the movie industry. Someone just sees you and is like, oh, you're, you know, like not lazy or like you're smart, you're like do this job, and then you just like, they teach you everything. So
It's pretty cool. And
yeah.
as far as the first aid certification goes, I remember you were a very avid scuba diver. And
Yes.
were you a rescue diver? Sorry, this is related, I promise.
I was an instructor actually. I
Okay,
did my
so
instructor course.
you already had like first aid certification, first aid training, right? Isn't that required?
I did, but I had to do a 2-week like industrial first aid course to get
Oh
the
wow.
certification here. Yeah.
And did you
So
ever have,
yeah,
go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, did you ever have to use that on the set?
Um, I mean, there was a few times, like one person, a stunt person, ended up breaking their ankle,
Oh,
which is like, it's kind of, and then one person, he like cut open his like finger quite badly. And I mean, but it's like, there was people that I took the first aid course that like work for like BC Hydro, like the electricity
oh wow.
people or whatever, and they go like way outside on remote work sites. And there was people that work on ships, so
Oh
they
wow.
were like serious first aid. Like it was them or like nobody. Where for us, we're like, oh, I think you broke your ankle. You should go to the hospital. Or like, I don't know, or if it was like something serious, you just like you're in Vancouver, so you just call 911 and they like, will come take care of it. Or if there was like serious stunts, they would always have an ambulance on standby. So I mean, it was like we were there and like had responsibilities, but it was like less intense for sure than some of the people I took the first aid course with, who were like, it was them or
Right.
nobody. Like there was no other option or backup.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. So,
Yeah.
how was that in, again, I get hung up on strange details. How was that industrial first aid course separate or totally different from what you had done for your diving training?
I think it was just way more in depth. Like, um, it was just like it covered all sorts of scenarios, and we really focused on like how to transport someone on like a spine board or whatever,
Wow.
because it was just assumed that we would be in some remote location,
Mhm.
which didn't really apply to me. I would never have to put somebody on a spine board really, but anyway, because that's we just called ambulance. But like, so a big part of the course was focused on that, and yeah, and like keeping people alive for like longer periods of time, where the scuba diving thing was more just like recognizing signs of like decompression illness or whatever, and then getting them to like help that they needed, or like keeping them kind of alive for a short amount of time till they could get to a decompression chamber. So I mean, I think the scuba diving one was like, I don't know, 2 or 3 days, where this was like 2 weeks. So it was just like, yeah, a lot more to it for sure.
Wow, much more intense.
Yeah.
Very cool. Do you go diving much these days?
No, I actually stopped completely.
Oh no. Do you miss it?
Yeah. Well, I kind of miss it, but I mean, I had this like, I was diving in Malaysia right before I left Korea,
Mhm.
and yeah, I had this kind of like scary experience. It wasn't my error, but it was like the dive master that I was with, and
Mhm.
there was kind of a beginner, and it was like the beginner guy almost died. Like,
Oh my
I
God.
don't know, it was like it was really crazy. And so it was just like, after that I was just like, oh, this seems really dangerous. Like, so I actually sold all my scuba diving equipment when I left Korea, and just
Oh
haven't
really?
gone since then.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know, I mean, I kind of miss it, but I kind of think it's also a really dangerous sport. And
Mhm. You've kind of closed that chapter of your life for now.
yes, yes, most certainly. So yeah.
Mm. So tell us more about what you're doing nowadays with your website design and self-publishing. And I know that you're no longer teaching, but I get a newsletter from you every week with lots of good teaching tips. So,
Yes.
like, tell us more about how you got into all of these like teaching adjacent
Yeah.
areas, and how's it going?
I actually am teaching a little bit. One of
Oh,
my friends is a private academy here in Vancouver, one of my friends on my tennis team, and she asked me to teach some classes for her. So I am doing like a very like little amount of
oh, that's
teaching.
cool. Are you teaching children there?
Teenagers
Oh,
generally.
okay.
Yeah. And
That's
one of my friends from Korea is now here with her niece and nephew, so I'm
oh
teaching
really?
her nephew actually, which is like
Oh wow.
random. But anyways, Yeah, I started like my blog and self-publishing books while I was in Korea, and yeah, I just kind of continued on with that similar thing. And um, yeah, I mean, it was like, I think people liked what I had to say and found my like activities quite useful. And yeah, my book sales have been quite good. People are definitely like willing to pay money for the things that I write. So yeah, so I just wrote more books, and yeah.
How did you choose the topics of those books? Because they're really quite diverse, but there are definitely, you know, gaps in what's available, or there were gaps that you're starting to fill with a lot of
Yeah,
these
for
books.
sure. I just like look on Amazon, and I mean, there's a lot of like ESL conversation activities and ESL speaking activities, ESL activities, but there's nobody that had written the books like ESL reading activities, writing activities, listening activities, grammar activities, online activities, like those specific ones. So yeah, so I just decided to be the first kind of like person to do it. And um, yeah, so I think like people that are teaching like a reading class or something,
Mhm.
they don't book the ESL conversation activities. Like that's not going to
Right,
be
right.
useful, you know. And it's like I wanted to just write something that they could like buy, and it's like there's like 50 solid activities, and they're like, okay, every one of these activities is like relevant to my class, and I can actually make teaching reading interesting or teaching grammar interesting or whatever they're doing. So yeah, so that's kind of the niche that I've like pursued, and yeah, kind of going into more depth, I guess, for that kind of thing.
Okay, and how about the what is it? The financial tips for ESL?
Oh, that one. I
Yeah,
mean,
Bolen.
I wrote the book The Wealthy English Teacher.
Right.
That was like one of my first books. So I guess that was like 6 or 7 years ago.
Mhm,
And at that time, I was actually way more interested in financial
mhm.
things like investing and passive income than I am now, quite honestly. So I've kind of like, I think the details in that book are still like relevant and very useful for English teachers, anyone who wants to kind of like figure out their finances and like learn how to save money and like live frugally and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But it's just not kind of not my interest anymore. So um, yeah, so I've just been focused more on like things for in the classroom actually, um,
Okay.
than outside kind of related things. So
Right. Well, that's interesting. I learned about ETFs through you, and now I do have some small amount invested in them. So thank you very much
oh,
for that.
good, good.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I love hearing. I still hear from people occasionally that are like, "Thank you so much for like helping me like figure out whatever like
Right.
financial things." So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
always happy about that.
That was great for the basics. So
Yeah, yeah,
So we've got a lot of questions over on the Discord server actually about self-publishing. So
sure.
Maria Lisak asks, how long to write a book? Academic, non-academic, recommendations for book publishing how-tos, how to survey potential markets for ebooks, where to distribute online,
Yeah,
uh, financial pitfalls and time requirements for online and social media promotion. So can you give us all the nuts and bolts?
yeah, sure. So to write a book, it kind of depends on what you're writing. So I think like something like ESL activities is a bit easier than, well, I mean, in some ways it is, than something like my financial like management book that actually took quite a while. I had to do a bunch of research about it. Yeah, and something like ESL activities, if you've been teaching for 10 years, it's actually quite easy to like not have to do research about it. It's like the activities and ideas and tips and whatever are just in my head. Like I just have it's the experience that I've lived. So it didn't actually take that long, I guess, to write the ESL activity books. Like I do it full time now, so I can maybe do it in like about a week, generally, to actually write it. And I recycle a few of the activities between books, and just kind of adapt them from like speaking to listening or to grammar, whatever. So that actually helps me save a little bit of time on that. In some cases, I have to write everything from scratch. So yeah, I'd say about a week if you're doing it full time, but most people aren't. So I think it can take like a month or two. Might be like kind of a good goal. And my books are written like very for non-academic types. I don't reference sources and that kind of stuff. So if you were writing like formally for academic, stuff. That would definitely add a significant amount of time too. So, so that's maybe the first question. And then recommendation for book publishing, how-tos. I use Amazon. So Amazon, it's like kdp.com, I think it is. And yeah, they have a bunch of like how-to guides. So just head over there and take a look, because Amazon kind of just dominates the market. So that's kind of the obvious place to start with that. And then also another place that's not Amazon is draft2digital.com. So they will like submit your book on like Google Play and iTunes and basically all the other places, like 10 or 12 other places, including libraries and that kind of thing. So yeah, check out that resource too. It's quite easy to use. So those are the two main ones for book distribution, I guess, and how-tos. And how to come up with ebooks, ideas, or survey potential markets. I mean, the best place to honestly look is on Amazon. If there's like a few books about a certain topic, then it's like generally kind of a good sign that there's money to be made in it. And kind of my quick tip is to like look and see your competition's books, or like if you're like, oh, that's like a good, you know, something that I know about, something I could write about. Take a look at like say the top 5 books in that, like on those search terms, and then see what their selling rank is. So like there's millions of books on Amazon, but if the book say ranks like above 200,000, you know that they're like selling copies and there's money to be made. But if it's like all those books are down in like the millions in terms of sales, then it's like there's just people aren't buying those books. And it's like, you maybe could like write a way better book than those other books and then maybe make some money, but it's going to be like a bit of an uphill battle, instead of if you find like a topic that you know about, that like there's a bunch of books that are 100 or 200,000. And if you write a better book than those ones, I mean, you could actually be doing quite well. So that's kind of the best way to like find topics and ideas.
Mm-hmm. Well, where do you get your ideas for the activities?
It's just stuff I've done in my own classes.
Okay.
Yeah, I just was like, I don't know, just for whatever reason, I just didn't love slogging through textbooks. I just was like, I think I was bored of it by the time, like after 5 years of it, I was just like, ugh, it's like same old activity. I don't know, I just like, I didn't want to do it anymore. I just wanted to keep things interesting. So, so I just kind of came up with like a ton of activities and ideas on my own. And I also wrote a bunch of the books with Jennifer Brooker Smith, who maybe many co-teaslers would know as well. So she taught kids for a lot of years. So she had like so many good ideas too. So a lot of the activities are hers as well. So yeah, between the two of us, I guess both of us kind of had the same vision of like making teaching English more interesting with different activities and games and stuff. So yeah, it's just kind of our lived experience, I guess, in the classroom. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's cool.
And then what else? Was there another question? Okay. So where to distribute? Oh yeah, so the KDP and then draft2digital. And then she asked about financial pitfalls and time requirements for online or social media promotion. I mean, it's like you can spend your entire life and all your money like advertising or interacting with social media, but I mean, the thing that actually will like sell the most books is building an email list. And if you listen to any of the gurus online, it's all about building an email list, because like Facebook can change their algorithm any day. They can like delete your account with like thousands of like followers. The group can get banned that has like 1 million people in it that you promote your books to. Like, so I kind of view those things as like bonuses. Like if I have them, that's great. And same with Pinterest or like whatever, they change their algorithms all the time. So it's like, you can't really depend on them, but an email list, it's like your list. You don't own those emails, but it's like people have opted in. They want to hear from you. And so it's like, and nobody can really take that away from you. Like, it's just something that's like yours. And so the best way to build an email list is to have a website of some kind that you put content on, like in a book. I'll maybe have like, say if I have 100 activities, probably like say 10 of them will be online on my website. So I kind of like give freebies away, like a lot of freebies actually. And then I say like, hey, do you like this activity? Check out the book, or like join my email list or something like that. And then, yeah, then people like opt in that way. And yeah, so that's, and then I like send them emails, just a long series of emails, endless emails. But yeah, I think they're like helpful, and it's not all self-promotion. It's just like, I try to give people like good information and helpful stuff. And then, but I think it's also impossible to not know that I've written books. I think I try to balance like information with like, oh, and hey, there's this book that you might find helpful, so check it out if you're interested, kind of thing. So
So
yeah.
how did you start building your well, the website and the email list? Like they obviously, you say, go hand in hand. So where did you start with that?
Well, I had this old blog on Blogger or Blogspot.
Okay.
And like, this was years ago when that was popular. And I just, it became like a little bit popular, I guess, because I was the only one talking about teaching in a Korean university at that time. And so I used to get a ton of questions about like, how can I get the job? Or like, what about this work situation or whatever. And so I was listening to this podcast about online business, and I just was like, oh, like, I wonder if I can make money from it. Like, it was just a fun hobby or whatever. And then I thought, like, I was getting questions like almost every day from people asking about how to get a university job in Korea. So I wrote a book exactly called that, How to Get a University Job in South Korea.
Right.
On Amazon. And then I started selling some copies of it. And I was like, oh, this is like, wow, I can't believe I could actually make money from this like information that I have. And nobody else was really talking about it at the time. So that was kind of the start. And then I started just to get more professional, I guess. Like, I self-hosted my own websites and added a lot more content and paid attention to like search engine optimization and like building an email list and social media channels and like Facebook groups and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's been like a process. It's like, I guess that was about 8 years ago, or no, maybe even longer, like 9 or 10 years ago, I've kind of been in the world of online business. So it's like, I think back to then, and it was like, I knew like 1%, not even 1%, I'd say 0.1% of what I know now. And so, but I mean, and I still feel like I'll look back in 10 years and think, wow, like I knew 1% of what I know now. Like, there's so much to learn, and everything changes all the time too. So yes, it's kind of been a process of like podcasts and reading a lot about it. And yeah.
Are you still developing your knowledge? Like, where do you go to learn more about how to become more successful in your own business like this?
Yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts when I go like hiking or hiking. Sorry?
Do you have any in particular that you'd recommend?
Okay, let me look on my iTunes. So the Authority Hackers are really good, and Building Online Empires.
Oh, wow.
Niche Pursuits podcast. The Web Equity Show. Empire Flippers podcast. Yeah, those are the ones. Those are kind of my favorites, guys that I respect and like trust what they're saying. So yeah.
So do you interact? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
And then kind of the main guy, if like you ever want to learn more about online business, the guy that will come up most often is Pat Flynn at Smart Passive Income. So he's kind of like a good place to start if you're a beginner. He gives a lot of basic information for free, and it's super easy to understand. Like, so he's kind of where I started, but he does more kind of a general approach to things. So I just wanted to like dig deeper into like my specialty, I guess. So I kind of moved away from him, but he's a good place to start for a beginner, for sure.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So about how much time do you spend every day working on, I mean, and how do you divide your day?
I generally try to spend like 40 hours a week doing it. It maybe doesn't really happen. I work maybe 30 hours a week or sometimes 20, but now it's like summertime. So it's like, I don't know, I've been like taking not like vacations because it's coronavirus, but I've been like going camping or like, I don't know, going paddleboarding or whatever. But so I usually get up pretty early. I get up at like 7 usually, or 6:30 or 7, and then I work until like lunch, and then I'll usually go exercise, and then or like even just go for a walk or whatever. And I work for like another 2 or 3 hours in the afternoon, and then yeah, generally at nighttime I'll like play tennis or like go with friends, or well, not go out. Maybe like my 1 or 2 friends in my bubble will like come hang out at my house or whatever. And yeah, I don't know. That's like kind of my life these days. So yeah.
That's cool. So when you say when you do work, you're working on manuscripts or like online stuff?
It kind of depends on what's going on. So I spend a lot of time like actually writing new books and then editing them, and I like get them professionally edited. So getting that back, and I like get my covers designed by other people. So just managing that, and then I have a guy who does some Pinterest marketing for me, so I manage him. Okay. And then on my blogs, I have a writer who works for me, this guy in the Philippines, so I manage him and tell him what to write about. And
oh wow.
Then I will often go through my websites and update the old content to make it more like user friendly, and just optimize it for example, if it's like 10 ESL reading activities, I'll make it like 15 ESL reading activities or whatever, just like make it more longer and better for my readers. So yeah, I spend time doing that. I spend time doing new blog posts too, once in a while, not a ton anymore these days, because there's a lot of content on those websites actually already. But yeah, once in a while, like maybe once a month, I'll do a new blog post on all my websites. Yeah, so
cool.
that's about it.
How do you decide like which things you're going to feature each week in your email newsletters? It seems to always change. I haven't seen very much repetition, I think.
Yeah, I actually have a big spreadsheet where I keep track of like what I've talked about in each email. So yeah, so there shouldn't actually be, I hope there's not, there shouldn't actually be a ton of like repetitive or boring things. It should be like new stuff. So yeah, I generally just go like, if I like, for example, if I do a new blog post on one of my websites, I'll just go in and write an email related to that to promote that new blog post, or just, you know, share that. So that's kind of my main source these days. Or if I'm like, you know, like publish a new book or whatever, I might write an email related to that, or yeah, so that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. And then since you're actually managing employees, I guess they're technically freelancers, right? Yeah. So how does that affect like your taxes, and that there's got to be a whole bunch of like ramifications for actually paying people as freelancers, right? Do you have to provide them with special tax forms?
No. Well, they're in the Philippines, so I'm not sure. I actually like haven't asked any questions about what they're. I actually don't care. I mean, if they are doing it under the table and the government doesn't know in the Philippines, like it doesn't matter to me actually. So it's just like I've never asked, and of course I would provide documentation to them if they needed it. But it's like honestly, no freelancer has ever asked me for that, so I never have. Yeah, but as far as my own taxes go, it's like it's actually been beneficial hiring employees, because I've gotten, you know, like a lot of value out of what they've done, but then my own tax bill at the end of the year is lower because their salaries come directly off my profits. So yeah, it's actually been, so that's kind of one of my strategies at the end of the year. If I'm making what I feel like is too much money, then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna like hire this guy to like do this, you know, like 10 articles for me or whatever. Yeah, so I mean,
interesting.
Yeah, it's like worked out well for sure.
And how much time do you yourself spend on like social media type things? Do you still participate in Twitter? Do you do any Facebook type interacting? I mean, not personal, but for your you know, business.
I think Twitter, I was never I don't know, I just like didn't really ever get Twitter for whatever reason. I don't know. So I've never really been active on Twitter. And Facebook, I mean, Facebook was actually a great place to promote, like, for example, new blog posts. This was like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. in groups, so different groups. But they changed their algorithms to really heavily focus people who do paid promotions. So it's actually super difficult to get anything in front of people unless you pay for it on Facebook. So I kind of stopped doing that because it's a little bit of a waste of time. It's like a lot of time and energy, but not a lot of results actually. And I mean, I have this big Facebook group, 2 of them actually. I think it's like English Teachers Abroad has like more than 50,000 people or something, like a ton of people. But then it's like I'll post my new blog posts and then I check my like analytics to my website and it's like, oh, I got like 7 visitors like from like a 50,000 person group. I'm just like, what? Like this doesn't seem right somehow, but I don't know, it's kind of reality. But Pinterest is actually the one that I like most heavily focus on these days. And yeah, so I hired a guy in the Philippines to make some pins and like do that kind of thing. And then I also, for every new blog post I write, I'll put like usually 3 different Pinterest kind of friendly images in it. And then I have like an automatic pinning platform or program. So I put them in there, and then updating old articles, I'll put like a new image or whatever, just kind of a fresh image for Pinterest in it and then promote it. So yeah.
Where do you get your images?
There's like a few different free places. So just search online for like free stock images or whatever, and then you can find them. And then I use Canva to like, I put them into Canva and then kind of do my own. I have a few different templates that I use. So I put them in there, and then yeah, it's actually quite easy. It just takes a few minutes to do. So if you have templates.
That's really cool. So how many hits a week do you usually get from Pinterest? If you only get like 7 from, you know, the
I would, yeah, probably from Pinterest. I like maybe for my ESL teaching websites, probably like 100 or 200 hits a day.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, like quite a lot. So most of my traffic is like from Google, like Google searches, and then also some traffic from my email list. And then, yeah, Pinterest is kind of a big one too. So, yeah.
That's really interesting. So how many people are on your email list? I mean, because it's been years that you've had it, right?
Yeah, it's true. Right now there's about 10,000 people.
Oh, wow.
But I actively delete people who are not active. So that's, yeah, 10,000 like active people who will like open emails or respond. And yeah.
And does that just go through your website? I mean, it's not Mailchimp, right? Like the
Oh, no, I do use Mailchimp. Yeah, I use Mailchimp.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not really the best. It's the best option if you have a small email list. It's not expensive, but it gets more and more expensive as time goes by, which I'm kind of at now. But it's like I'm also a little bit like, I just don't want to switch it over. It's like a ton of work. There's no like button you can just press and like switch to like this cheaper thing. There's like doesn't exist. So
right.
I'm just kind of stuck with it, even though I'm not 100% happy with it. But I mean, I know how to use it, and nothing bad has happened so far. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, as somebody who is in charge of the Cotisol Mailchimp account, I'm curious, do you ever use any of those special features they have that they charge extra money for?
No. I mean,
Okay.
no, I mean, yeah, like you can do like funnels and segments and like, I mean, there's like a ton of things you can do.
Right.
Which like, I mean, like really, like if I was way more organized, I would like have a like on my website, if someone wanted to join, I would say, what are you interested in? Getting a university job, financial management for English teachers, ESL activities. And then whatever they clicked, there would be like a funnel, an autoresponder series to each funnel or whatever that would lead to like my university job book and then my wealthy English teacher book and like that kind of thing.
That's cool.
So that's certainly a thing that like, oh, this is Lucy the cat. So that's like certainly a thing that people do. But like, I mean, I just haven't put the energy and time into doing it. So yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. And I'm curious about the books that you're actually selling on Kindle. Are they part of Kindle Unlimited, or is it just people just buy them rather than joining the Kindle Unlimited program?
About half of my books are in Kindle Unlimited and the other half aren't. So Kindle Unlimited, I mean, like the big advantage is that people just pay the subscription fee and then they can read your book for free, but you get a little bit of money per page that they read. So that's kind of how that works, but that's the positive. But the big negative is that you have to go exclusive with Amazon.
Oh, really?
So they don't allow you to publish your book anywhere else. So I actually like looked and checked how much money I was actually making from Kindle Unlimited,
Mhm.
and it was like it was such a small amount that I was
Oh,
like,
really?
oh shoot, like I didn't really realize that at the time.
Mhm.
But about 6 months ago, I kind of actually took a closer look and I started removing my books from it and
Oh,
then
wow.
publishing them through draft to digital. And yeah, started publishing them on like Apple and Google Play and that kind of stuff. And it's like, I definitely make more money through those channels than I do through Kindle Unlimited. So yeah, I'm kind of getting towards moving away all my books from that program.
That's interesting. So the ones that you just straight up sell, is there a difference in the amount that like Amazon takes versus Google Play versus Apple Books? Do they take the
Um,
same percentage out?
I'm not 100% sure about that. I just did it through draft to digital. And so I think it's like very similar, but it was like you can submit all those books individually to all those programs, but it takes like such a ridiculous amount of time where this website, they just do it all for you. So I think I get like through Amazon, I think it's 70% commission. And then this one, I get like 60% commission or something like that. So, I mean, yeah, it's like similar. It's not super different, but I'm not 100% sure actually
Okay.
what the exact rate on that is, but yeah.
So for a new author who has just produced their first ESL activities book,
Yeah,
uh, they've just got the document itself.
yeah.
Maybe it's edited. What would you recommend they do next?
Um, yeah, like definitely you have to format it in kind of a precise way. So take a look at the style guides that Amazon produces. It's quite easy. I mean, it's not rocket science, but you do have like a few hurdles to jump through. And in terms of like getting your cover designed and like it has to be a certain like meet certain like specifications and that kind of stuff. So um, you can do it yourself. You can figure it all out. Or another option is to go on Fiverr.com, and there's people that will you can pay to like format your book for you and do a table of contents, and then you can pay other people to like design your cover, kind of a professional looking cover and stuff. So I mean that's certainly an option too. And then once you have that done, you can like upload it to Amazon. Yeah, it's pretty simple. There's a few steps to follow, and you have to do like a book description and that kind of stuff. But it's pretty step by step. So yeah, it's not super difficult to do.
Okay. And then they can market it to their budding email list, right?
Exactly. But I mean, it's like Amazon is. I mean, they're a platform to sell things. So I mean, someone can discover your books
Mhm.
through that platform. I mean, it's like certainly people search for things on Amazon to buy. But Amazon is not really interested in promoting your book as much as you should be interested in promoting your book.
Right, right.
So if you are like serious about it, then yeah, you definitely will have to do self-promotion. So don't think that Amazon will like sell a bunch of copies of your book for you. It's kind of unlikely. The better strategy is to have an email list or social media groups or just whatever, or like a YouTube channel or just some sort of, it's called an author platform. So whatever author platform you choose, or a combination of two or more, then that's what's actually going to sell a bunch of books for you. So for me, it's my websites and my email lists that I collect emails through the websites. So
Right. But you actually designed your own website, right?
yeah, I made them myself. Yeah. Yeah.
What would you recommend for somebody who doesn't really know how to do that?
I mean, it's not super difficult actually. I mean,
How
in my
would you start with that? Yeah, can you tell us more about how somebody could get involved in designing their own website?
I mean, if you use like WordPress, it's simple enough. There's like different themes you can use, even just some basic like WordPress 2020, WordPress 2019, like basic themes you can use. And it's kind of just like you just plug in the various options or whatever. So to come up with like a very basic website is not actually super difficult. But to make it like professional looking and like user friendly and easy to navigate, there's kind of a lot more to it. But I mean, the kind of key is just getting started. So don't be paralyzed by like the need to be perfect, because it's like nobody knows how to design a website well when they're first getting started. It's going to be like, it's just like writing the first draft of like an essay or like whatever. It's going to be terrible usually. You just have to like get it on paper, and it'll like, you can fix it, you can make it better. So yeah, over time you can like figure it out and yeah, pick up tips as you go for sure. And I actually took some computer programming classes at a community college here, and I took like a class on digital marketing and user experience. So yeah, so I definitely like learned a lot through those classes about how to like design websites and how to fix, like troubleshoot problems and do some of my own custom coding and that kind of stuff. But you don't actually need to like know that stuff at the start for sure.
Are those classes that you took after you went back to Canada after Korea, or are those things that you did during your master's? Your
no, it was after I went back to Korea, because in one of the unions that I joined, or that I was a member of for the film industry, I would get like $1,000 a year in tuition credit. I could take any class at any institution basically. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna like take some of these like digital marketing classes and stuff. So yeah, that's what I use the money for. So yeah, it was great actually. It was just like free, yeah, like professional development, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, that's really neat. What did you do your graduate work in, by the way? I was going to ask earlier, but got distracted.
It was also psychology. I mean, yeah, I was thinking about like maybe being a professor and going on to do a PhD, but yeah, I mean, I just kind of discovered that there was like people who were way more motivated than I was and like smarter, and yeah, so I kind of gave up that dream. I just thought I didn't, yeah. So I just finished the degree, but I always kind of knew that that plan wasn't going to be, I don't know, I wouldn't have been happy, I don't think, doing that. So
what aspect of psychology were you focusing on?
Just general psychology. I was like thinking about focusing on something, but then I just realized that it was like, I wasn't gonna actually go any further in it. So I just did like general stuff and did a comprehensive exam and didn't actually end up writing a thesis. So yeah.
That's fair. And these days, since you've got the psychology background and you've got this business interest, do you look into, have you read any of the most recent books about like the psychology of choice or consumer psychology, anything like that? I'm just curious.
No, no, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like, it was interesting to me. Yeah, 10 years ago, it's kind of in the past. I don't know. It's just like, I'm not super up to date on that kind of stuff anymore these days. So.
Cool. Well, I think we're running out of time. So do you have any last bits of advice or suggestions for any of our potential viewers?
Yeah, nothing specific, but if anyone listens to this and needs any help or wants any advice or anything, yeah, feel free to like for sure get in touch with me. You can find me at eslspeaking.org is my like main website, and my contact details are on there. So yeah, have a look and yeah, let me know if you need any help, and I'm happy to talk to you.
Very cool. And are you willing to pop into the Discord server for like the next few days in case anybody else has a question they want to post?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll reply.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Well, thank you very much, Jackie, for joining us. Don't close off the computer yet. I'm going to stop recording, but then I have some questions for you also that just for me.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. And
okay. Thanks everyone
for watching.